I've always believed in youth development, and I've always been a volunteer as well. And I believe that youth are underrepresented in decision making, and particularly now as we move into a technology era with information and knowledge at the fingertips. I don't think we do youth justice in how they can contribute to decision making going forward. They see the world through a different lens than what we do. We're fairly constrained by ideology and stereotypes and things, whereas youth free thinkers. And we see it within our program when we provide a platform and the tools to be innovative and the freedom to be able to make mistakes. We see some pretty amazing things that the students come up with. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast, Steve. We really appreciate it. I think your unique background will be quite a fun conversation. And then with what you're doing now and the conversation we've kind of just been having, I think there's a lot to be said about kind of obviously unique pathways, and working out how to kind of think outside the box is pretty relevant these days, especially with how fast everything is moving and the trajectory of kind of change and how the, I guess, more traditional routes are becoming unhinged. And that's going to obviously require future generations to kind of, I guess, approach life a little different, perhaps.
Yeah.
And pretty cool to talk about that.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
So what are you working on at the moment?
A digital transformation within the organisation to help us scale.
Okay.
We train young people to transition into search and rescue and emergency management, and we started off with one branch in 2008, and we've now got 9 branches moving into next year with a target of 22 by within the next 5 years, and we're on track to deliver that. And but we're reaching the end of our working from SharePoint lists and Excel spreadsheets, so we're moving into the realm. The minefield of going out to a CRM. We're fully online through Canvas by Instructor as a teaching platform through the learning management system, and that was good through COVID. We were able to pivot completely online for a period, but so moving into into digital data sets and being more data led in regards to decision making for what's best for our students and partners there. So that's I guess that's internally. Externally, what's going on at the moment, the search and rescue, like other government agencies, are going through restructure. So finance and funding is restricted through the government initiatives to get back on track, and that's affecting the search and rescue sector. We're not sure how much that will be, but we'll find out in February, March of next year. But I guess for us, what that will mean if the funds are restricted, we'll need to just go out to philanthropists and see whether we can keep moving forward on our growth strategy, without as much help from government as what we get.
What was it that made you want to work with youth specifically?
I've always believed in youth and youth development, and I've always been a volunteer as well. When I left school, I was a swim coach, and led youth groups and things, and I believe that youth are underrepresented in decision making, and particularly now as we move into a technology era with information and knowledge at the fingertips. I don't think we do youth justice in how they can contribute to decision making going forward. They see the world through a different lens than what we do. We're fairly constrained by ideology and stereotypes and things, whereas youth are fairly free thinkers, and we see it within our program when we provide a platform and the tools to be innovative and the freedom to be able to make mistakes. We see some pretty amazing things that the students come up with. Yeah.
So how does, I suppose, that community mindedness, I suppose, that you seem to actively generate. How does that tie into your definition around wealth?
Um, Look, I think for myself, I I think there's, and we talked about it earlier. Like I think young people, one of the things that's lacking in schools is that that financial learning, the fiscal around how to manage money, how to manage businesses, start up new businesses. And I think it's more relevant today than what it's ever been, with the ability for students to start creating businesses at a younger age, because the tools are there and available to you. And we see that emerging. There's a lot of students who are actually starting small businesses now. But I still think that there's that understanding of how the finance sector works, and running businesses and things. We don't specifically train, do that within our program, but we certainly see students. Like we've got students that are running their own little sideline businesses within our group.
Yeah.
And yeah, so.
Mm, okay. And so, everybody's got their own unique definition of wealth. Where do you think yours started from?
Um, that's an interesting question. I traditionally had, I never, like, I think if I had wealth as a focus, I wouldn't be doing what I was doing. And I've always worked for someone else rather than working for myself. And that's a personal decision that I've made, because I have that sense of altruism and wanting to give back and leave a legacy in something greater than wealth. But that's always often opened up new opportunities through volunteerism, and I've had such an exciting life and work history, from farming to managing a research orchard in the Bay of Plenty, to put my policing career, and then emergency management with regional councils, and then finally into an organisation which I co-founded 15 years ago. And and it certainly I don't think, look, if I was looking at being wealthy, I probably would have chosen other. But I guess it's through the decisions that I've made along the way that's helped gain wealth, and sort of prepared me for my retirement with myself and my partner. And I don't think it's ever too late. Like for me, obviously the earlier you start, the better. I've for my children, I've got 3 boys, and for each of the boys, I've offered them financial literacy training through a financial investment company, and they're in their 20s and early 30s, and because I see that's really important for them to understand how to manage money, and how to prepare for retirement, even at that early an age. But sort of 15 years ago, I came out of a relationship with absolutely nothing. I was actually in debt, and
Okay.
but have been able to, through good decision making, get to a point where I'm comfortable now and confident that I'm going to have a pretty cool retirement with my partner. So, yeah, I don't think it's ever too late. It's just a decision that you make with the knowledge to make those good decisions.
So, with the company that you co-founded, why did you choose to do that?
So it's a charity, and that's why it's not mine. We've got a board of trustees. It's a charity, a registered charity in New Zealand. I co-founded that because I was managing search and rescue. I was one of the incident controllers in the Bay of Plenty, and at that time there was when we were requiring search and rescue volunteers to come out and assist the police to do the grunt work, and they had to go out into the field and search for people. The numbers were dropping off, and the age was increasing, and so we looked at a long-term approach of starting to train the next generation that came through, um, and we're talking 5 to 10 years. It's not sort of immediate. And so we started the youth development group as a small charity. We formed a local charity, and started off in 2008 was the first student body that came through. And so from there, we started gaining interest. We were operating for about 5 or 6 years, and interest started coming from other regions and other groups, and we were uncertain whether we could duplicate what we were doing in Tauranga into another area. At that time, I met my partner and shifted to Auckland and started the Auckland branch, just to dip our toes into the water to see whether that was achievable, and both financially and logistically, whether we could recreate the same culture, and which it worked really successfully. And that was in 2016, 17, and then from there yeah we continued. Our board, we transitioned our board into away from an operational focus to more of a governance focus, and we brought in some training, some external training to the board to look at what governance actually meant.
Yes.
And from there we created a formal business plan and strategy for which we're now working through. That was set in 2018. And this year, no, I've always been a horizon thinker. I've always been there's a really famous quote most of the listeners will probably know of it, by George Bernard Shaw. He said that he wanted to die thoroughly ringed out.
That's awesome.
I've got the same philosophy. I don't want to miss any opportunities in life, and so I'm always sort of looking at things, and sort of and running this organization is no different. So looking at what's coming up that may affect our students, what might be on the horizon for them, not only in their volunteer capacity but also in the work environment. So I try and create as many opportunities for them as possible. And one of the things that we did this year, we worked quite closely with Datacom, and we ran a futures workshop with Datacom this year to look at all of the signals that are going off around us around AI. How's AI going to affect not only us as an organisation but the student body, but also search and rescue, where the opportunities might lie and the risks. And so I spent a couple of days with Datacom exploring all of that to produce a roadmap. And from a 2030, from a 2030 horizon, we're pushing that to 2040 horizon now. And some of the other horizon signals, we're building that into our strategy to provide opportunities for a greater student audience than what we currently have.
And is that why you guys want to go from kind of 9 sites to 22?
Yeah, and beyond. Something that we're looking at is we're working with NEMA, the National Energy Management Agency, and looking at whether we could provide youth development. From Mike Bush's report to on Gabrielle, there was some real shortcomings around the collaboration and lack of community resilience within the East Cape of T, and that's no blight on them. It's just that there's a lack of coordination across the country for and it's it's certainly been a focus, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So we're looking at being able to provide youth development within secondary schools. It's nothing, we haven't got a program yet. We're looking at it as the actual possibility going forward to next year.
Okay, and so what are some of the challenges that you see from going from that 9 and building up to whatever number you end up? What are some of the blockages?
The partnership relationships is certainly not an issue. It's you go out and you talk to people, and people see our vision and align with our values very easily, because it's something that, it's good for the community. To invest in youth is good for the community. It brings in wealth, but it also brings in collaboration. The community works better together when they work together. They become stronger, more resilient, and look, I think the challenge is funding. We w- our students pay a fee each year, and but that's only they pay only a third of what it costs to put a student in a 3-year program. Yeah, and so we do get some government funding, but that's certainly not enough to make ends meet. And there's massive competition for funding through the volunteer sector. In New Zealand, I think there's 20,000 charities across. Oh, really? Yeah, massive. It is massive. Uh, and so I guess that's our biggest barrier. Like we could do anything with the right money, but we need to be very clear of what our purpose is, and not try and overcook it as well. We need to be keep things fairly tight around what our mission and is, our purpose is.
So it sounds like you're a little bit up in the air until the funding decision is made come February, March.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And but we're pretty agile as an organisation. We'll regardless. We'll survive. We've had that. The budgets. I've just finished my budget for 2025. There's a lot of assumptions in the budget, and most of it's funding related. But you know, when you share your purpose and your vision, we get great support from the private sector, from corporates. We had Zespri been a gold sponsor of ours for 6 years. Oh, awesome! Yeah, and this year we're looking at bringing on board three new gold sponsors. Oh, cool! Yeah.
So even if the funding does not come to fruition, there's backup.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's interesting. We've got with like, I was first staff member sort of 5 years ago. We've got 7 staff on board now, and they all hold the same vision and values. And we can strip it back. We did that in COVID, and we can strip it back and to just do the basics. It's certainly not the ultimate student experience. Yeah. I was part of the Resilient Organisations. This is an organisation that started out with Canterbury University. Okay. When I was working for the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, and we're focused on organisations' resilience through disasters. But I learned a lot through being involved in that organisation to not wait until something happens to become resilient, is to train and learn and be agile as an organisation to cope with those risks that they may not, but they may actually happen, and to be able to be agile enough to pivot when you can. Yeah.
Was that before or after the quakes down in Christchurch?
It was after the quakes, yeah, yeah. And I had personal. I was working in the police, and went down to Christchurch after the first set of earthquakes to relieve the frontline police staff, and they themselves had broken houses, and we were rostered on. I think most districts around the country sent staff down to support the police in Christchurch. And then after the second Christchurch earthquakes, I was down there on day 2 with a disaster victim identification. So we recovered. We were one of 3 groups recovering the bodies off the CTV and PG sites. And so I've got a real passion around search and rescue and emergency management. And it's been part of my career for 25 years now. Yes.
Where do you think that came from?
Altruism, I think. Yeah, like wanting to give back, and that was police. I when I left school, I wanted to become a police officer. And I never really quite got there. I had about 6 recruitment packs over several years, and and eventually did it when I was in my mid-30s, and that's gone right through, and that's part of why I do what I do with the youth as well. Yeah, all right, and it's about legacy. Yeah, what's lasting, and I can't think of anything better than investing in in the youth development, because what we I don't know, I had when I was growing up, I had some really influential adults that certainly influenced me, really strongly, and so that's putting it forward. Yeah.
See, I was like, a lot of people think of wealth and they think of it funding sites of things, right? But I think you're a really good example of wealth being a lot more than that. It's the social, it's the community, it's the giving back, it's all that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're recruiting at the moment for an administrative role within our organisation. That's a part-time role. We've had it advertised for 5 days, got 250 applicants, and there's probably 10% of those applicants that are in commercial, are relatively high-paying roles, and some of them are even 2 or 3 grades above an administrative role, but the common theme through that is they're wanting to pivot into something that holds more value, that aligns to their personal values, and it's more than just making money. And there's a balance. There's obviously a balance there because you have to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's we're in this financial crisis at the moment where costs are escalating, and but it's interesting to see that there's that team that's coming through. Whereas if when we were recruiting 4 years ago, we would have, we were recruiting a reasonably, I guess I was probably mid-range, but it was a managerial role, and we got 20 applicants for that, and we employed some people beginning of this year, and those, and this is just an example of how it changes. We had 250 applicants for those roles as well. So you would not, you've been a charity. We see you're not, we're not paying, what people could get in the private sector, but it's that values all they're really seeking. They're fine, yeah.
Okay. So you've held some really interesting roles that I imagine at times were very challenging. So what are some of the things that you've put in place to look after your mental and physical self to help you get through those kinds of things?
Interesting. I'm probably one of the most counselled police officers in the country. The list is the same, I am, but every opportunity to be debriefed after critical incidences, I took up, and I encourage anybody to do that. And I know we've got a culture in New Zealand, particularly around with males, is to harden up and get over it and get through it. And that certainly wasn't the case in the police. The police were a fantastic employer, and they've got really robust psychosocial support for their staff, uh, and so really really important to keep on top of that. And I know some colleagues, following Christchurch have struggled. I've had PTSD or got PTSD, and with that, but it's something I live with. I close my eyes and I can picture everything that I've been through in the police, and that doesn't go away. But it's just you cope with it, how you deal with that,
And what are some of the tools you've learned to manage, I guess, those tension points in your psyche?
talking about it and reaching out, being very open, having those not only those friends and colleagues to have open communication with, but also have the professional help when you need it as well, rather than suffering it in silence, which most people do, unfortunately. And I think the narrative, I think that we as men need to speak more freely about it. And it was interesting at the gym the other day. I was talking to a chap and we were having the same conversations. He was struggling, but it's been vocal about it for us. Yeah.
So, you've mentioned you've got children,
Yes.
and you've said that you set yourself up financially well for retirement. So you also mentioned legacy. So what legacy do you want to leave for your kids?
Certainly a financial legacy, and it's interesting because I'm not sure whether that's whether that's a family thing, but I know for my dad, that's so important for him is to leave a financial legacy for us. We don't need it, and I've got two sisters and a brother, and we're constantly telling mum and dad just spend it, use it all the soil, like yeah. But it's so important to him because it was important for his father and his granddad, and he was a recipient of a reasonable amount of money at the time that enabled him to buy a farm, and that set him up, and so he sees the importance of that. For me, I'd like to do the same for my children as well, and I know, my oldest boy's in a home himself now, and the other two are on track to get their first home, and with that financial, literacy and understanding, I think that's certainly help is helping them get into a position to be able to afford that. It's out of reach to a lot of people, So yeah, and I think there's a balance there around trying to, ensure that both Suzanne and I are comfortable in our retirement, uh, um, uh, we're moving into I guess, a stage of our lives where we're starting to plan that and what that might look like.
Yeah. Have you had any thoughts around what that might look like?
She's Portuguese, so a lifestyle between Portugal stuff would be nice. Yeah, yeah. No, that's cool.
That's also my goal because I'm Portuguese, partially Persian.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Rural kind of here, maybe 15 minutes from Auckland, and then Facey.
Yeah, Portuguese too. Yeah, and that's it's definitely what we're looking at. I've been to Portugal, quite a few times now, and love the country. But Susanna's equally loves New Zealand, and so having the best of both would be ideal. And her parents still come over to New Zealand every year for 2 months. Wow, cool. Yeah, and they play golf, and living a lot there. So yeah,
Do you see it like with your altruism? Do you ever see yourself retiring as such?
yes, that's a good question too. No, probably not. Yeah, no, probably. I'll always do something. I did the swim coaching, and then Department of Conservation ranger, and then I went for victim support. I wanted to. At the time I recruited into the police, there was a waiting list, a 2-year waiting list. So I applied as a case manager for victim support, and so I worked for victim support to see the other side of crime, and that was a really good going into there. And but then the opportunities that come up through volunteering is just incredible. I worked for 3 years with the Southern Traverse Challenge as the safety advisor, and that was volunteering. You paid. I got paid for this until the last year, but the first couple of years it was just because I love the outdoors and wanted to be part of such an um, incredible race, and got to see some amazing places of the South Island. And that was just me just phoning them up with an interest, saying, "Hey, could I come down and help volunteer?" And I did the same a couple of years ago with the NACRA and 49ers challenge. As in skipper of one of the boats out on the harbour here, and that was just an interest of mine, and there was an opportunity to volunteer. And you meet some incredible people through that journey as well, and I'll continue to do that. So I think to the moment I die, and that's all about. That goes back to that George Bernard Shaw, and just making sure that you say, "Here, you get every drop of out of that towel, before you go." Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to someone who's wanting to get into volunteering?
Oh, I guess just uh, I know where your interests lie, and just pick up the phone and just say, "Can I help?" Can I help?
Yeah.
And you'll find most times it'll be yes.
Yeah.
Like how long can you? I guess one of the challenges that we've got is that we don't burn our volunteers out, and that's a constant. And that comes back to the technology discussion that we're talking about. We're trying to be as innovative as possible to make it as easy to deliver the program as possible, because we know that everybody volunteers for a different reason, and it's making sure that that reason is still relevant through their journey,
Yeah.
and never to take it for granted, the service that they provide. And I always remind my team that regardless if you're a parent that gives 1 hour a month or you've got somebody that gives 20 hours a week, every single hour that you give an organisation valued and really appreciated. And it would be nice to give them gifts and presents and stuff, but you can't, as a charity, you can't do that. But you've got to be really proactive and actually, vocalizing that to the volunteer sector, because they're incredible. In the country, and the government knows how much the country is propped up through volunteer service. And another thing that I did for a couple of years was a one-shot operator on a rescue helicopter, and that was, again, it was a I was in the police, and I was working for the Bay Penny Regional Council at the time, and they gave me time off when the whistles were in. And it was another fun thing that I did, but it was just because I approached them and asked them whether I could help out. Yeah.
It's nice to hear too that it doesn't have to be 20 hours a week.
No, it doesn't.
It can be 1 or 2 hours a month if that's the time that I've got. Because I think that's a barrier for a lot of people. They think, oh, I don't have the time, but I've got on a Wednesday, fourth Tuesday of every month, I could do 2 hours.
Yeah, and it's not. I guess it loops back into a financial discussion as well. And you at the moment where um, and yesterday I was at a volunteer and sponsorship meeting around how the landscape of sponsorship is changing, and 60% of the funds that go into charities across New Zealand is coming from philanthropists rather than from funding agencies or even the government. And I guess it's the trend is that look, individuals aren't giving, but that's generalization, but aren't giving from consistently over a long period of time. They're giving, they're actually sort of picking, I'm going to support this organization for a little while, and then something else might uh, uh, and so it's managing that as well. But individuals can support if they're not haven't got the capacity to support as volunteers. They certainly can support through financial giving. But and that's a challenge in itself to make sure, not only to feed back to the volunteers that they're doing a good job, but also feeding back to the people that are supporting you financially, that their money is essential to the operational delivery of the program. Yeah. And I think the outcomes, the outputs of, speak for themselves. Our students go on to some incredible careers. They're just amazing careers. And we did a survey last year, which surprised us all. We do those word clouds. So we said, yeah, he says word cloud. Engineering was right in the center in bold letters, where a lot of our students are gravitating to university to do engineering careers, and but all sorts, Defence Force, and we've got a doctor down in Wellington. She's been through the program, and she's on the board of trustees for the Duke of Edinburgh Award.
Yeah.
She was running the Wellington branch of our organisation, and went through medical school at St Thomas. Yeah,
Busy lady.
yeah.
So if anybody wants to kind of support you guys, how would they go about it?
They could email me directly. Yeah, yep. Or just go online. All my details are online. It's YSAR .nz, and at any level, whether they want to become a volunteer, and a branch for volunteer could be just somebody coming in and supporting the local weekend training exercises to being instructors or looking after the local budgets to at a national level, just helping us with the strategy and delivering on the strategy.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much. Really enjoyed it. It also had kind of a little bit of a different type. But yeah, great. Really feel I really appreciate your time. And yeah, thanks for it. We will stay in touch.